This is Arkies in the Beltway, your look at national politics and the Arkansans influencing the discussions. I'm Alex Thomas, Washington Correspondent for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, reporting from the nation's capital. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of March 9th, 2025. President Donald Trump had yet to reach the first 50 days of his second time in the White House when he made his joint address to Congress last Tuesday. The nearly 100-minute speech met with thunderous enthusiasm from Republicans sitting in the House chamber and protest from Democrats. Trump started his second term with a stream of executive actions addressing everything from tariffs and immigration to government funding and the federal workforce to gender-affirming care and transgender athletes. Trump told the country last week that America is back.
6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country.
Members of the Arkansas congressional delegation attended last week's address. Representative Bruce Westerman of Hot Springs says Trump hit the right notes in touching on issues facing Arkansans.
On the economic side, there's a lot of good stuff for rural America, which that means that there's a lot of good stuff for Arkansas. He talked about increased steel production and lumber production, two core industries in Arkansas. He talked about the ballistic missile defense system. A lot of those missiles and rocket motors and everything will be made down in Highland Industrial Park in Camden. And he talked a lot about agriculture.
As Trump has issued his executive actions, Congress has been trying to finalize a plan addressing the president's biggest policy goals. This includes extending the 2017 tax law. Westerman says Trump can only do so much from the Oval Office.
You can't build your economy and you can't make decisions on 20-year economic investments based on a 3 or 4 year period. So that's where it's imperative for Congress to come along and put laws in place that reduce regulations, that improve the permitting climate, that allow businesses and entrepreneurs to go out and to build and develop.
Lawmakers were allowed to bring guests with their choices either highlighting people from their districts and states or raising awareness of certain issues. Westerman brought Amos Gray, the CEO of High Impact Movement, a Hot Springs-based organization offering after-school mentorships and family programs. Representative Steve Womack of Rogers invited Scotty Bolding, a Rogers-based oral surgeon. Representative French Hill's guest was Tigran Gambarian, an executive with cryptocurrency exchange Binance. Gambarian and a colleague were thrown into a Nigerian prison in February of last year. Gambarian was accused of tax evasion and helping Binance launder more than $35 million in transactions. Gambarian joined Binance after a career in the federal government, including time investigating cryptocurrency crimes for the IRS. The Nigerian government dropped the money laundering case against Gambarian in October after he spent 8 months behind bars. He says he hopes his story serves as a reminder of those Americans currently being detained overseas.
Every day matters, and not just for their physical health, but their mental health, and more importantly for their families, because it doesn't just affect one person. It didn't just affect me. It affected my family, affected my friends. It's an incredibly important issue, and something that America needs to stay on top of, not just for their citizens, but also send a message to countries around the world, is that our citizens are not commodities.
Hill, the Little Rock congressman, was instrumental in creating Hostage and Wrongful Detainee Day, honoring Americans unjustly held in custody abroad. Sunday will mark the second nationwide recognition of this day. One moment of Trump's address involved a congressman. Democratic Representative Al Green of Texas removed from the chamber after yelling at the president. The House of Representatives voted Thursday to censure Green for his actions.
On this vote, the yeas are 224, the nays are 198, with 2 answering present. The resolution is adopted.
House Speaker Mike Johnson reading the tally. 10 Democrats backed the resolution. All 4 of Arkansas's House members voted to censure Green. Representative Womack co-sponsored the resolution. The House Financial Services Committee approving a proposal from Representative Hill on overdraft fees. House Joint Resolution 59 would stop the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau from implementing a rule limiting these changes, as well as prevent the agency from issuing similar language for the foreseeable future. Hill holds the gavel on the House Financial Services Committee. The CFPB put forward the rule in the final weeks of the Biden administration. If it goes into effect in October, banks and credit unions would have to limit overdraft fees to $5, charge an amount covering costs and losses, or continue overdraft loans if these financial institutions are willing to comply with relevant lending laws. Reflecting on his experience in community banking, Hill says consumers are smart enough to manage their own finances without this kind of federal action.
I also learned that competition gives consumers more choice, and we ought to be promoting competition, not federal price controls.
Arvis Bank of Fayetteville is part of a legal challenge against the rule. The Arkansas Bankers Association signed on to a February letter calling on congressional leaders to invalidate the CFPB's action. Members of one Senate committee considering Representative Westerman's bipartisan measure addressing forest and wildfires. The House passed the Fix Our Forest Act in January. Westerman and California Democrat Scott Peters, the measure's lead sponsors. The legislation would accelerate environmental reviews for forest management projects, promote collaboration in addressing wildfire resiliency, and lead to a new casualty assistance program for firefighters' families. The Senate Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee received the bill for its consideration. Committee members discussed the measure in a hearing last Thursday. Kansas Republican Roger Marshall.
We know wildfires are indifferent to federal, state, tribal, and private property jurisdictions, and we've all seen the destruction catastrophic wildfire can cause on our rural and urban communities.
Senator John Bozeman of Rogers leads the Senate Agriculture Committee. The measure's timing is worth noting. The House passed the Fix Our Forest Act as wildfires swept through Los Angeles and surrounding communities. The discussion among senators as crews responded to fires in North and South Carolina. Matt Weiner serves as the CEO of Mega Fire Action, an organization focused on improving wildfire response efforts.
The megafire crisis is continuing to accelerate, and our systems are continuing to be overwhelmed year after year. This is a nonpartisan emergency that requires a bipartisan response, and the Fix Our Forest Act is an excellent place to start.
The Senate committee's consideration of the bill also comes as the Trump administration pursues actions affecting the federal government's response to forest management. On his first day in office, Trump froze money from the Inflation Reduction Act, including dollars meant for wildfire resiliency and vegetation management. Nearly 6,000 Department of Agriculture workers, including those with the U.S. Forest Service, are back on the job after a federal board issued a temporary stay against a reduction in the USDA's workforce. Colorado Democrat Michael Bennett says these actions, if they continue, could have serious effects.
It won't matter what we do here in Congress if the administration is simultaneously undermining our land management agencies and withholding the resources they need to do their jobs.
Weiner says these recent decisions hurt conservation and wildfire response efforts that are already under immense pressure.
The current firings and freezings are only making things worse, but this is a long-standing problem. It's appalling that we're continuing to put our firefighters in this position, and a permanent, well-resourced federal wildfire workforce remains an urgent need, and Congress should step in to stop the bleeding.
The House passed the Fix Our Forest Act in the last Congress, but the Senate never considered the measure. Something to watch this week: federal lawmakers need to approve some sort of plan by the end of the day, March 14th, to avoid a government shutdown. You can follow any and all developments at Arkansas-online.com. And that'll do it for this edition of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of March 9th, 2025. You can stay up to date with all news involving Arkansas at Arkansas-online.com. Special thanks, as always, to the team down in Little Rock. I'm Alex Thomas, and this has been Arkies in the Beltway. Thanks for listening.